We are live.
I have a new proposed opening song.
Oh yeah, what is it?
I should have got it ready.
You're not gonna sing it for us, Dimitri?
Yeah,
Oh. I want to know what people think about it. Can you hear it?
No, you cannot hear it.
No, not
Can you
really.
hear it?
There you go.
All right, we'll try it next time. So greetings, folks out there, as you join us, people coming in to join us for what I think is week 7 or 8. What are we at, Caleb?
We're week 7, sir.
Week 7 of MITA's virtual series to aid the social equity applicants. And what we're finding is a lot of other individuals as well who want to learn about the Arizona medical and adult use cannabis industry. Just real quickly to sum up, where we're at today is if you go to the MITA website, there's 12 hours of course available online already. Between now and April, we're going to do on a weekly basis. We're going to get up to 26 total hours available. Then in May, we're going to do our deep dives where companies are going to get really in depth, and we're going to create all these hour-long programs, and those are going to be sitting on the MITA website as well for another 30 hours. And then sometime in Q3, when the state comes out with the application process, we're going to have Dr. Humble himself, who's here with us, talk about the interpreting the rules and the application process and whatever they come up with. So we're going to have about 62 hours worth of information total on the MITA website. We encourage you to share it with others. This is what we call the industry giving back information. And it also is a way for you to network and find out who's who and who's willing to spend a couple hours of their time as individuals and companies to share knowledge and information and train, et cetera. So we thank all of our panelists in the past. We thank all the panelists today and all the panelists and companies who are participating with this in the future. So without further ado, let me again thank our principal underwriters. Zuber Lawler, thank you for all your support and all your contacts. Copper State, again, incredible organization here in Arizona. And Weed Maps, cannot say enough about Weed Maps, the vision and philosophy as a company. Scottsdale Community College, who, as soon as we're done with this and we close up shop probably towards the end of the year, for the next 10 years, we'll be teaching about cannabis, policy, rules, regulations, the industry, the opportunities. So we're very excited to have that kind of partnership with them. And thank you, Dr. Humble, as well, for your participation and your support of our project. So with that, Caleb, did I get all the administrative stuff in? Destiny?
Yes, sir, you did. Yes, sir, you did.
Okay, let me introduce our topic today is great. And MIPS, I gotta call you out, Dr. Humble. But before we went live, Dr. Humble was saying, what are MIPS? So edibles, he got it. So MIPS are one of the things I know the least about. I know retail, cultivation, a lot of policy, a lot of regulations, a lot of people. But I'm excited to learn more about MIPS, and we have an incredible group of individuals here from the industry to talk about their experience and share with us their information. So without further ado, let me introduce them, and we're going to have a quick introduction, 2 or 3 minutes with each of them, one by one. Let me start with one of my favorite people in the industry, and Allison, you're supposed to smile because you knew it was you. Allison from Duchy, which I've always mispronounced, but is one of the leading brands in the industry. Allison, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company, how long you've been involved in the industry and what you guys are all about?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's an exciting opportunity, so I appreciate you inviting me and including me in this panel. My name's Allison. I have been in the cannabis industry in Arizona since 2015. I work with Hana Meds, and I've been with this company since 2016. We launched Dutchy pre-rolls to the Arizona market in 2017, as well as Love Carissa Edibles, which is now Revival Edibles. It's been reborn. It's been a wild ride. I have a ton of stories to share, so anything I can do to help somebody else out in this industry, I'm happy to talk about it. So,
where did you come from before you were in the cannabis industry?
I did all kinds of stuff. I worked in personal home care. I worked in agriculture. So I kind of have a little bit of a diverse background.
And you said Love Carissa as well. What other companies I always just go by Dutchie. You know, what other companies again? What other brands?
Yeah, so our sister brand, Matt's on here with Revival Edibles. Revival Edibles is our new edible brand. It's formerly known as Love Carissa Edibles. It's an exciting brand. Everything is sourced and made in-house from scratch. We do all of our infusions with kief, so it's a little bit different than some other products you might find out there. But we have some great offerings for Arizona right now.
Well, we'll get into kief and what that is and what that means. But Love Carissa, and we'll get to Revival Edibles, which I don't know you guys that well, and Dutchie, but you know, people need to recognize that these are companies out there that are willing to spend some time supporting the community. So please support them when you go to your local dispensaries. Thank you for joining us. Anything else you want to share out there before we move on to the next person?
I'm sure I'll have plenty to talk about as we get going, so I won't take up too much time. Thank you, though.
You know, and we're going to have a giant, as soon as we get through COVID and have this giant, we're going to have this giant social equity meetup with community members, industry members gathering sometime in May or June or July. I'm sure you'll see Allison there. So
I'll be there.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving
Thank
on
you.
next to, thank you for being here. Any questions, Caleb or Dr. Humble or Destiny for Allison?
Nope.
Yeah, you guys should jump in. Oh, Dr. Barbara, there you are. Okay, moving on to our next guest, Del Foster from Bake Bros. Bake Bros is one of my favorite companies when I want to take a little syrup so I can sleep. You're on mute, Del. Del, how long have you been in the industry, and tell us a little bit about Bake Bros.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for about 4 years now. I come out of the tech space, and my pull into the industry was an opportunity to relocate a dispensary from Tucson up to Phoenix. So for those of you familiar with Curaleaf Midtown, formerly Midtown Roots, that was the project that kind of pulled me out of what I was doing into the cannabis space. And that dispensary was folded into obviously a large brand. And over the last 2 years, I've been with Bake Bros. So that's kind of my story. I'm the director of business development here, which means I'm one of many master problem solvers. You know, we're a team. I think one of the things that I'm sure will come through in our discussion today is my experience in the industry has just been, so much change happening so fast that you've got to be ready to solve the next problem thrown at you. And so that's what we do here, what we've been doing over the last 6 years. A little bit about Bake Bros history was started by two friends, Thomas and Nadeem. And in 2014, well, let me actually back up even a little bit more before that. Thomas is a Navy vet, and he had a family tragedy in his younger years where he lost his mom to a prescription drug overdose. And so that inspired him to want to become a doctor to help others in that kind of pain. Nadeem's background is in combat sports. He was a competitive wrestler up and through college, and then has some amateur fights. I think his stage name was Quarantine, which I think is hilarious, based on what we've been dealing with the last couple of years. So these guys come together as a couple buddies with a love over cannabis. And in 2014, they attended the first High Times Cannabis Cup in the States in Denver and won best product. And so they came back feeling like they had tiger by the tail, not knowing quite what to do with it, and decided to jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. These guys did not have a plan, I don't think, starting out, to build this to where it is today. And it's been a lot of, our story has been a lot of growth and putting processes and systems in place as the business matures to get ready for the next evolution. And that's been repeated several times in the last 6-7 years. The last couple of years has been a heavy focus on talent acquisition. And, one of the things that impressed me and drew me to these guys is their acknowledgement that they can't be the smartest people in the room anymore if they truly want to take this to the next level, right? And so we focused on bringing in the right people with experience from sister industries or industries outside over the last couple of years. And that's led us to a place where today Baked Bros is one of the most recognized brands in the state. We manufacture a line of gummies and, as you mentioned, Dimitri, some very versatile syrups. They allow you to prescribe precisely dose and create an edible out of just about anything. So where we're at now and what the focus of the company is today is taking everything that we've learned over this time that we've been together, failing our way to success, and capitalizing on this next chapter. And I think Gary Vee had an interview that he did a little while ago where someone was asking him what inning of the industry we're in. You know, are we in the bottom of the sixth, or, you know, the game just start? And, you know, he said, we're getting in the car to go to the game, right?
Yep.
And so I feel like anyone listening to this at this time, you know, is in the right place at the right time. And hopefully we can share some things today that help you figure out what to do with that.
And this is your first Zoom, and I you know, you're doing a great
This is the
job.
first Zoom. Yeah.
You nailed it. You talked about Baked Bros, talked a little bit about yourself. You did great. You shared a
Thank
little bit about information about Nadim being called quarantine. Is that what?
Yeah, I knew you'd appreciate that. So I wanted to bring that. Yeah, Quarantine was his cage name.
Yeah, we should get some more intimate details about Nadim. You know, I'm like the first member of his fan club, so
Yeah.
so appreciate it. You guys are a great company, and I know you're a family just like Dutchy. You guys have this. How many people work for you guys now?
We've got, I think we're probably right around 50, something like that. You know, all told, maybe it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, and that's great. And so, you know, people need to reach out to you guys as they open up their dispensaries or for any other reason, so they can make sure they're properly stocked with Dutchy, with Baked Bros products. So thank you again for being here, Del. Caleb, Dr. Humble, Dr. Barbara, Destiny, any questions for Del and Baked Bros?
I just loved hearing that it was an evolution. The industry is always changing. So I think that that's one thing that you're definitely going to hear today and continue in these modules. I love that analogy about we're getting in the car on the way to the game, because every single day is different. So it's always an evolution, and you can never stop learning of what's going on. So I really like hearing that.
Yeah, thank you, Caleb. And Dr. Hubble, Dr. Barbara or Destiny, please always help me. I want to make sure that the people out there get to know a little bit, get a feel for who our panelists are, so they know who they are, so they can reach out to them once they're in need at a later time. So next, one of the OGs from the Arizona industry, who's going through a little bit of a health thing right now, and we love her a lot. And Peggy, do you want to come off mute? You need to come off mute first. She's having a little bit of trouble speaking. So
Yeah, but I will push through.
you'll push through. You know what, Peggy, you are a champion. You know, since 2010, 2011, since I've known you, you've succeeded in all sorts of elements, from construction to edibles to switching companies to bringing OGs to the market, as well as other edible lines, and doing so much. So we wish you a quick recovery. Do you want me to talk about you, or do you want to talk a little bit about?
No, I'll talk about me.
Okay.
I appreciate it, Dimitri. So yeah, I actually have been in this industry since my first career out of college, and so it came full circle that I was sitting in a 280E seminar in like 12. So a person I knew had a license, and I decided to take on the infused product part. And so I was one of the first infused product made from scratch, everything's from scratch, kitchen in Arizona. And we went through enormous evolutions trying to figure out what we were doing. Because at the beginning, we hadn't a clue. We didn't even know how to do the formula. We had to consult with people and find out things. And so it was all from the seat of our pants, because although I've been in the industry for years, it hadn't been in that aspect. So so we developed our initial company, and then switched names to Copia. And we had originally, we built up to 60 products, tinctures, syrups, baked goods, gummies, hard candies, trying to figure out what would work for people. And for me, it's always been about making a difference in the world and helping people. And so it's a passion for me. And for me, passion follows, and then comes the money. Without the passion, you don't get the rest. So, so over the years now, we built this up, and then we hit on the OG gummy.
The OG's gummy, yep.
The OG gummy. And the OG gummy has taken off like unbelievably ballistic. And so we discontinued all our other 60 items. And we have all kinds of SKUs of OGs, and we'll be developing more and more and more. We also are the licensee and producer right now of kind concentrates. We're doing that as well. So it's been a fantastic, exciting, enormous ride, and anything I can do to teach people, I love that. And to share, and as we go forward, we have about 38, 39 people working for us, and we're constantly hiring. As we move forward, our plan is national, and to also develop, excuse me, some other products off our OG line.
Well, Peggy, why don't you save your breath? I just recovered from COVID myself. I'm 98, 99% now, guys. So like, I'm really energized. It's kind of why I'm wearing my hat backwards.
Yeah, that's why I like to do this, because it makes me happy.
Yeah, I know, bless you, Peggy, for your commitment. You speak up as you want. Everybody knows OGs. Everybody knows how to get in touch with you. We'll make sure your email is on here and stuff. But please participate as you feel like it, and focus on your health and for speedy recovery, Peggy, because we're going to get the team back together. We're going to get networking back, and we're going to have these giant 300, 400 per people meetings, and it won't be the same without you. So please focus on your health, okay?
Now, when I get back, I'm going to have a big OG party.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm there, Peggy.
Any quick questions, Dr. Humboldt, Dr. Barbara, Destiny, Caleb, for Peggy? All right, let's move on to Matt. Revival edibles. I don't know much about Revival myself. When did a Revival come about? When did you come about? And tell us about your journey into the industry.
Sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. Second, also, I've been in the industry since October 2019 is when I joined Hana Meds. So been lucky enough to work with Allison here for the last, I guess, year and a half or so. As she said, Revival started out as Love Krissa edibles, which Hana's been producing for, I think, about 4 years or so, Allison. I think that's about right.
Yep.
We kind of decided that the brand, while we love the product and we love how the product's made, and kind of using keef, what makes it unique to the market, but we just thought it needed a little bit of a refresh and maybe a new look, and so we decided to probably really only took us probably about a year to figure out what we were gonna go with, but we settled on Revival, and we still make it the same way as Love Krissa has always been made, using the keef from the flower that we grow. So we're really happy with the quality. We think it has a nice new look that people are going to really enjoy. as well as obviously the quality product that's always been. So excited to be on here and talk about it a little bit.
Where did you come from? I got some notes over here. By the way, HanaMeds, shout out to HanaMeds, the whole organization. We haven't mentioned it yet, but people should recognize that company, your company. But where did you come from before you came into cannabis? 2019. You're clearly
Yeah, sorry.
like
So
20 years
prior
old.
to coming to cannabis, I worked in the alcohol industry, sold wine and spirits, sold beer before that. So did that for probably, I don't know, about the last 6 years or so. And, had an opportunity to come to join HanaMeds, and always been interested in the industry, always been interested in the products. And so it was just a great opportunity to come work at a company that has, obviously a great brand like Dutchie that a lot of people know about and a lot of people really enjoy. And then, opportunity to try and grow that brand and grow other brands like Revival. So it's a
HanaMed
good move.
is the dispensary license, and then
Yeah, so Hannah has 2 dispensaries. So we have a dispensary in Kingman, we have a dispensary in Green Valley. And then we produce Dutchie, we produce Revival. And we sell those, obviously through our 2 dispensaries, but also sell them throughout Arizona to a number of other dispensaries as well.
and that's fantastic. And people are getting to know more about how the licensing structure works in Arizona and how the brand opportunities exist, et cetera, and how different we are. And that's present as a theme over all of our webinars. I keep changing the names of them, but thank you, Matt, for joining us. Caleb, Dr. Humble, Dr. Barbara, Destiny, any questions for Matt?
I do, and I'll ask them as we get to them in the presentation. It'll be a little bit more pertinent. I do have some questions about just background and company. I'm fascinated to learn more about it, but it'll make more sense here in a little bit.
Oh, well, great. Anyone else? Feel free to jump in. Okay, thank you, Matt, for joining us, and thank you, HanaMeds, for lending us 2 of your stars. I know Serena Gomez works over there for you guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Or as we like to say at Bake Bros and Dutchie and OGs, works with you guys.
Yes.
We work together, not for.
Part of the family.
Yeah.
Yes. So now let me move on to our last guest, and then I'm going to turn it over to Caleb. Actually, first I wanted to hear from Dr. Barbara and Will and Destiny. Destiny is behind the scenes, but she needs to be recognized more. She's behind that Bovida. There you are. She's right there. She makes. This girl knows everything. She's like incredible, and she makes MITA happen. So we'll get to her in a second. Dr. George, Pure 5. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little about your experience. Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
So thanks for the opportunity. My name is George Tanchev, and I'm the CEO of Comerc. Comerc is known in this industry as Pure 5. We've been 5 years in this industry, providing extraction solutions and we have various brands for doing some eatables, vapes, and cosmetics. We have 25 years of background building equipment for the fragrance and flavor market, usually known as terpenes in the United States. So pretty much anything that is infused with terps and any combinations of them is our specialty. I'll be happy to share any experience in this, and especially creating vapes and eatables.
Oh, well, thank you, Dr. George. Tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in the industry and what states you're working in, et cetera.
Well, it was about 6 years ago in a natural trade show. I was approached by with the purpose of creating an extraction system for this industry, and that's how it happened. So you cannot make something without knowing how it works. So we had to get the license and start extracting when we and then make our extracts into different products and so on. So again, we perfected that over the last 6 years, and now we're very proud of what we're creating.
I think if I could go back and start over again, I would just focus on extraction. rather than all the regulatory policy stuff, which is clearly not a moneymaker. But thank you for joining us. Caleb, any other questions for Dr. George?
No, again, I got questions about a lot of their equipment and things that will make more sense as we get a little further along. So it's look forward to learning more about you, Dr. George. Appreciate you joining the panel.
Yeah, and all your emails will be available on the website, and you can put them in the chat. You know, people know how to get in touch with you, so we greatly appreciate that. But that does allow me to segue to thanking our this is Save the Terps. It's a what is it, a motto by Bovida, which is our module sponsor for the day. So we thank Bovida for helping us out, helping keep this machine going, where we can provide all this education information for people. So if you don't know about Bovida, check them out. So we got lots of little Save the Terp hats in case. And Dr. George mentioned the terps. So we'll get to terps and we'll get to.
We use those every night in our jars to help keep our flour fresh. That was one thing, one in the bottom and one in the top of our jars every night.
And real quickly, we usually allow our partners, Zuber Lawler, Weed Maps, and Scottsdale Community College, our Copper State, to say a quick word. Dr. Barbara, you want to say hello quickly?
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Barbara Crockett. I'm a faculty at Scottsdale Community College. We have a cannabis business program. Our next class starts March 22nd. It's online, so anyone in the country can take it. And if you're interested, you can send me an email. I will 420business@scottsdalecc.edu, and I will put it in the chat.
You know, 8 years ago, I never thought I would be working with Scottsdale Community College on a cannabis course and helping you guys out. And here's more faculty, you know, Allison, Dell, all you guys, Dr. George, Matt, they're accepting faculty over there. You guys have a level of expertise that's extraordinarily valuable. But we'll get
I'll hire all of you.
You'll be hearing from me, Dr. Barbara.
Okay.
Well, this is also a networking for all you guys as well, not just for those other people out there. Okay, so Dr. Barbara, thank you. Destiny, you want to quickly say hello? Reintroduce yourself.
Hey everyone, name's Destiny. I run the MITA website and the social media. If you need anything, just reach out to me. And actually, I run the memberships too now. So
yes. She's the COO, CFO, CEO, Director of Operations, everything. So she's fantastic, and there's nothing she can't do. So thank you again, Destiny, for running things today.
mhm.
So I think we got everybody introduced. Let me turn it over to our facility.
Dr. Humble.
Oh wait, there's Dr. Humble. We're gonna.
I'll just be real quick. Thanks, Dimitri, and everybody. I'm gonna be on this every week throughout the whole series. A lot of it I'm here to learn. I'll be presenting information when we get to the meat and the details of the social equity licenses later on. A little bit of background is I've been in public health for like 35 years. I was fortunate to be the director for the state health department when the voters approved the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, which allowed me to build the regulations for the industry we're talking about now, at least the medical marijuana portion of it. And by the way, a lot of the adult use rules are pretty much block, copy, and paste for those medical rules with a few adjustments. But one of the bigger learning experiences of my entire career, because I was thrown into the responsibility of, building the regulations for an industry that I knew nothing about. And so we did a lot of block, copy, paste from other states that had gone before us. And I've been listening to this series, and I think it's just kind of fun to listen to how everything has developed over the last 10 years. And we came out with our regulations in March or April of 2011. So we're not quite to the.
Yep, it was April.
Right about it, that 10-year. This is our 10-year anniversary, just
Yep.
about.
Yay.
Dimitri, you got to do something next week for our 10-year anniversary. I think our first medical marijuana cards, I made sure that we issued our first medical marijuana cards on 420. I don't know if that escaped people, but we did that on purpose.
So we noticed, Dr. Humble, I had mine on April 27th.
Well, that's pretty interesting. We need to do a story on that. Well, thank you again for joining us, and we appreciate your expertise and your perspective. It adds a unique, fascinating aspect of it, because this is a very unique moment in history we're all experiencing, where an industry is developed out of thin air, and you have regulations being created at the same time for an industry that doesn't exist. So you have this give and take between how things should work and how people think things should work. It's just a fascinating economic, regulatory set of questions that I've had the privilege to be involved in. Maybe one day I'll write a dissertation or something. But I know Dr. Humble's been right in the middle of it, so we do appreciate your perspective. And this series is also providing a little bit of a historical record for everyone to understand how things are. So thank you again for your participation. So did I get everybody? Okay.
Everybody except me, but I can introduce myself, Dimitri.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Caleb. I'm going to go grab another Coke here, 0, and listen in. And oh, by the way, panelists, feel free to interject. This is not, there's no the level of expertise that you guys have. Just jump in anytime. We want to create like a discussion, transparency, information for individuals. So just, if you feel the need, just say, "Hey, Caleb, I got something to say." Don't hold back. Caleb, go ahead.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Caleb Tice, COO of Canna Owners, a boutique consulting firm that offers services throughout the vertical at all stages of business development, even from licenses to exit strategy and sales. So there really isn't much that we haven't been involved with. I was one of the original licensees being awarded for SWC Tempe back in 2012. So it's been a crazy journey. I'm loving every minute of it. I appreciate everybody taking the time to come on the panel today. I know we all have very busy schedules, and helping to give back to this industry is really what makes this industry so unique, and why I love what I do and get to be involved with it every day. So let me go ahead and get my Destiny. Can you give me screen sharing, please?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. There we go. All right. So perfect. Okay. Let me get back into this to where I can actually see in the right way. Okay. So we want to say thank you again to all of our sponsors for the entire program: Zuber Lawler, Copper State Farms, Weed Maps, and Scottsdale Community College. Also want to thank again our module sponsor, Boveda. Again, as I mentioned, a great product, definitely helped to ensure that our flour lasted until the bottom of the jar. And that was the goal. So want to give everybody just up to speed about where we are and what we've done thus far. We've gone through on the licensing. We've talked about the history of Arizona licensing, current regulations, kind of structuring your deal, about how to assemble your team. We've talked about the retail experience. We've also gone in and then talked about cultivation, which brings us to today, which is MIPS, manufactured infused products. So our goal for today is, we've already gone through and done introductions and recognitions. So we're looking over our objectives and what we want to accomplish in the session today. We're going to talk about what an ideal MIPS site is and get some feedback from those that have already done it, of how they went through and picked their location and did that due diligence to evaluate and ultimately make a decision. Next step in the build out and project planning process is developing your processing plan. Once you've had your plan and get an idea of what kind of operations, we're going to look at staffing and administration. It's always important, the two types of cash that you have in cannabis industry: cash and inventory. So what logistical challenges and things that are unique to the industry. And of course, why compliance and SOPs are so important for everybody in the cannabis industry. So again, we thank all of our panelists, industry experts for being here. Dr. George, Allison, Matt, Dell, and Peggy, thank you all for being here. So at the end of this module, we are going to, you can learn, and what you will learn is the important aspects to consider when launching your operation. What are the different types of MIPS? What does that term even mean if you've never heard of it? Logistical challenges to resolve related to your operations, and then why compliance is so vital. So I want to go ahead and pose, and I know Peggy's had a couple of different locations, so I would love to ask her what makes an ideal extraction site? What are the things that you would look for when you were looking for a site?
Well, that's evolved. So originally, I had a 750 square foot kitchen, all equipped as a kitchen. And I build kitchens and restaurants, so that was easy. And that worked.
In a prior career, Peggy was a professional, well-known general contractor that built commercial kitchens.
Yeah, and everything else. Yeah. So, so that's where it started. Then I switched buildings and had more like 1,200 square feet. That now has evolved where we added on. And the reality right now is I need a much bigger building for production. And so that's what I'm sourcing right now, because you start out and everything's scratch made by hand, and everything basically stays that way, but then you have to mechanize. So in terms of keeping up with production, which has become insane lately, we're looking at packaging machines and gummy machines and that kind of thing, so that we could keep everybody supplied. Because right now with rec, we've had to dole it out. We're producing a humongous amount. So if I was to do it now from the beginning and know what I know, I would have gotten a much bigger building.
Planning for expansion, planning for the future.
Planning for expansion and the future, and other potential ideas and concepts.
Yep, you never know what the future holds. So thank you for that, Peggy. What about you, Del?
I've always wondered where Baked Bros is manufactured at.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think there's two questions, right? What makes an ideal MIPS site, and then where's Baked Bros at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're currently underneath the TrueMed license, and we manufacture here in Phoenix. So yeah, not too far away from Central Phoenix. What makes the ideal site? You know, not to be cheeky with it, but the site that you can get, you know. So there are a lot of challenges, not just on the manufacturing side, but, you know, just getting a site in general. I remember, you know, when we were looking to relocate the dispensary from Tucson, this is before Baked Bros, from Tucson up to the Phoenix corridor, you know, some of the restrictions prevented the building that dispensary ended up landing in from being approved, because there was a chapel in the St. Joe's, you know, facility that's, you know, very close, right? And so variants had to be applied for and all of this. And I think, you know, it's a struggle. There's a limited amount of space available where you have kind of the stars aligning with someone who owns the property that's okay with that, and then, you know, being able to check off all the boxes that you need to for a place that's approved to manufacture. I think generally, you know, it's the way that the license structure, for those who may not know on the call, is here in Arizona, is you can, you know, produce attached to a dispensary or have an off-site cultivation, I think, or manufacturing facility. typically the offsite facility is going to be much more attractive for a lot of reasons than something attached to a dispensary. A good dispensary location, right, is going to be a place with high traffic, a place that is probably more expensive, per square foot and stuff like this. And so that's not as important looking for a facility that you're going to be manufacturing. And in fact, you probably want to look for a place with less foot traffic, right? So you can consider things like security and eyes that you probably don't want on what's happening and what's going in and out.
Oh, thank you, Dale. Yeah, definitely. I think you started off well. A place that you can find ultimately.
If I may real quickly mention, because there will be a number of individuals looking for manufacturing sites in the future that will be listening in. Tucson, Arizona is like removing all of its restrictions as possible to make as many properties eligible for cultivation and for unlimited canopy cultivation and unlimited manufacturing size in the city of Tucson. So keep in mind that jurisdiction is making an effort to do that. I don't know what other jurisdictions are, but go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, no worries. So, Matt, Allison, what about you guys on same question? Just how do you evaluate a site? I think Dell brought up a good point about landlords. If you run into any issues with any of your landlords, had to change plans, I'm curious to hear about that.
I don't know. Matt, do you want to take this one or do you want me to start with this? Since we work together, we're kind of under the same roof.
No, yeah, sure. I'll take it. Yeah, I think, well, we're pretty lucky. We got a landlord that's really good to work with, and is a pretty, I think, integral part of what we do. And so kind of, that we're in a good spot there. I'm not just saying that because I think he's on the call. No, and I would agree with what Dell said. Like the location that you can find. I think whether you're looking for a cultivation site, a manufacturing site, a retail site, it's all it can be difficult to find a location for any of those things. So I really think you obviously, ideally, right, something like he said is secure and discreet is nice to have, but really you gotta, it can be tough to find it. So find something that you think will work for you.
Dr. George, I wanted to ask you about, because I see that, of course, you do some hemp manufacturing and there's just some different regulations related to that. So wanted to see if that had any differences for you in your process of getting your site together and going through those approvals.
Well, we've been involved mostly in contract manufacturing in the cannabis industry. So for us, the 3 P's are important. So power, product, and people. So first, we need a lot of power, 3-phase, 200 amps, and all extras. And of course, we need to find the right people to run it and enough product to run. So we're usually close to another licensee, and that's how we choose our operation.
Okay, and you guys based in Phoenix?
We're in Phoenix. We have 4 states, operations in 4 states, California, Oregon, Colorado, and Phoenix. But our main office is in Phoenix.
Nice, all right. Well, let's go ahead and continue on to our next, where is my screen share? Here we go. And that one, share. So the next step, now that you've started to look at your facility, you have an idea, so kind of what we heard is, first and foremost, is something that you can actually find, meeting zoning, power requirements are going to be a big one, planning for ultimate expansion while not necessarily breaking the bank by renting out 50,000 square feet when you only need 10 to get started. So the next step is developing that processing plan, because we're talking about MIPS. That could mean so many different things. So Allison, what does MIPS mean to you?
Oh my gosh, what a question.
That's a big question there, Kayla.
Yeah, well, that's a big question. MIPS mean a lot of things to me. But I guess first, first and foremost, you have to have a good plan. If you're, wanting to make and, manufacture infused products in Arizona, you have to have a plan, or anywhere. If you don't have a plan, you're going to run into a lot more road bumps than you were probably anticipating. So MIPS means definitely a project and an adventure to me, because it's ever evolving, ever changing. But yeah,
He takes the philosophical approach, Caleb. So
yeah, that's a very open-ended question.
what Caleb is looking for is actually
Let me jump in. Let me jump in.
Like
Go ahead.
specifically from somebody who knows nothing about what a MIP is. Like, Dr. Humble was saying, what is a MIP at the beginning of the thing? So,
Oh, just by the way, it means to me Medicaid in public schools. That's what I always knew MIP says. So
does anybody else
it's a
want
program for Title I
Yeah,
schools.
Let me just jump in real quick if I could, because I think the question that you were asking is, and this kind of on the heels of what Dr. George was sharing with, what he does. The processing plan from this particular segment of the cannabis business, you don't have to be an extraction expert to have, a viable business in this particular vertical, right? And so I just share a little bit of the history of Vape Bros kind of illustrate this. We had an extraction lab in the past. It's how we started. So we would purchase raw flower and we would extract that through the process and produce our own oil. But one of the things that you've heard several people mention already on this call is, and Peggy, I sympathize with the challenge of trying to find a place, right? You don't want to, when you first start out, a lot of us start out on a shoestring budget where, we couldn't go out and get that 50, even if it was available, it wasn't available from a cash flow standpoint, right? And so for us, the sunsetting of the extraction lab was a strategic move to partner with other vendors in the market in order to free that space up to be able to use it for something else, right? Because there are experts in the field already at this point that can supply high quality oil that's consistent. So I think, when you're looking at a processing plan, when I'm thinking of this the way it's outlined, it's, okay, do I want to process that all the way from, flower all the way through, or do I want to get some strategic partners that I can put in place, to provide something upstream? There are some advantages to that too. In November, we had some testing go live that allows for manufacturers to get a full, some analytes tested on that oil before final production. And without getting into the weeds of that, what it results in is a more cost-effective way to produce using an oil that you're getting from somebody else. So,
it's interesting, Caleb. So this is one of the issues with the cannabis industry. So Dell is you asked that question, and I think the question that you're looking for from Allison and Dell was like, what are MIPS? Like, what's a vape pen? What's the very, very basic stuff. I mean, what we have here is like, Dell and Allison can like teach you how to pitch a perfect game. And you're saying like you're saying what you need a glove and a ball and a bat to go to play baseball. And I mean, we have Allison, all you guys are at that such high level. So maybe we can, because isn't that, Caleb, what you're asking? Like what?
Yeah, I can clarify a bit. I mean, thinking of like, all right, so extraction methods, if you're going to be doing rosin versus BHO versus CO2, what kind of a setup, how does that impact your site plan? But really more like, what types of products do you decide you want to produce, and how do you make that decision? Like what's your thought process from, I want to make an infused product, to these are what we're going to be making?
There we go.
Want to know that? I can answer that.
Go for it.
Yeah. So originally we were trying to figure everything else out, formulas and everything, and what we were going to make. I was never going to make a brownie, but I did. Anyhow, we started out with keef because there was not clarity in the rule as to whether you could use a concentrate or oil. And we didn't want to take a chance. So we started out with keef till we were secure with using concentrates. In regard to what we were making, originally we made I was looking towards more health kind of things. So we were making peanut butter, we were making pesto, we were making tinctures that had a homeopathic base formula. Those are the things we started with. And I swore I'd never make a brownie, but I did. and then it was like, okay, looking at the market, what does the market want? You know, and analyzing and talking to people constantly. What do you want? What, talking to bud tenders, what do patients want? What would work for them? And then we would listen to that and then develop that. So that's what led to 60 products ultimately. You know, kind of throw it against the wall and see what works.
Yep. Yep. And then you paired back. So I think that's a good story to see of where you respond to the market. There's going to be a whole lot of needs. You can't do everything.
No.
Or let me rephrase. You can't do everything well.
Yeah.
So you have to focus in on what's going to be my core products.
Yeah. Yep. So ultimately, OGs became the core product.
Nice.
So are there any other types of manufactured infused products? I know Keef, concentrates, tinctures. What have we not mentioned that's out there that should be mentioned?
I think there's a whole world.
Yeah, of oil.
Well, Allison, go ahead.
I think there's, sorry, Peggy, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I think there's a whole world of products out there. You know, there are products out there that we might not even know about yet. So, you know, for people coming into the industry, if they see a product that they love and there's a product that they're passionate about and that's what they want to go with, absolutely shoot for the moon, you know, go with your passion. Like Peggy, you know, mentioned earlier, passion comes first. That will take you farther than a lot of other things will, but also keep an open mind because there are topicals, there are, you know, all kinds of just different, I mean, if you go to a CVS or a Walgreens and you walk down an aisle, there's so many different products, so many products out there that haven't had cannabis incorporated into them yet. So I think definitely keep an open mind when it comes to choosing a product, but there's definitely more than just, I think, the top 4 that people usually see when they start, you know, looking into cannabis. You know, they see vapes, they see flower, they see concentrates and edibles, but there's so much more out there. And I think that a lot of the future is going to hold new things that we might not even know about yet.
I agree with you, Allison. I think, you know, there's a lot of analytics that are out there now that people have access to look across different, you know, different market segmentations, right? They can go super macro or zoom into, you know, Arizona and see specifically what's happening here. I think there's a lot to be learned from some of that. And to your point, right? I think it was Henry Ford said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they kept saying a faster horse, right? Or something like that, right?
Yep.
So your point, there is some innovation that is ripe for this industry, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, that's what excites me because I've always wanted to get down into the really scientific, you know, and break it down and see what we can create that really makes a difference. And so I've gotten to this point now, and so it's time for the next step. And that's what's so exciting, the cutting edge, you know, and all the things we can produce that we haven't a clue, and the difference we can make for people. Like, for instance, we could develop something for mouth sores that would be tremendous.
You know, if I can just jump in here, a little story. So when I recently had COVID, I was in Colombia, all this crazy stuff, but they brought me an herbal remedy and they put all these like 16 different herbs, including cannabis, into a pot, steamed it, boiled it up, and put a towel over my head. And I was inhaling and outhailing. And I was thinking to myself, well, whatever they just did, which includes it's a MIP. It's an infused product. It's, you know, maybe one of you guys can put it together and sell it.
Might take up a lot of shelf space there, Dimitri, but that's
Include
it
the pot.
certainly works. It certainly works. So, Matt, I want to hear a bit about
Fear and loathing and the ether moment, but
Matt, about with Revival and you guys still continuing to use Keef. I know Peggy had mentioned that was initially where she had started, and is still definitely differentiator for you guys. So I wanted to hear about your thought, the process of that development, of why that decision was made.
Well, Allison would be better to speak to why the decision was made, but I guess I would start with we're continuing to use Keef because one, we believe in the product. We think that it delivers the way the Keef is infused into the coconut oil and then infused into the product, whichever edible product we make, that it gives our customers, consumers, the consistency that they're looking for, the potency that they're looking for, when they're looking for it. And so that's why we use it and continue to use it. But Allison, if you want to talk about how that started, go for it.
Sure, absolutely. So it started, we really didn't want to, and I mean, this is completely opposite of kind of what I just said, because I'm all about innovation and, creating things that are new and exciting. But when we first started our products, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. This was all very new. There were gaps in the market that we knew that we could fill, because it just, stuff hadn't been happening yet. So when it came to edibles, we talked about what do we love most about edibles, because, everyone who created these brands and these products, we're all very passionate about cannabis. We all love it. Most of us, consume, and it was just kind of like, well, what do you love about edibles? And, I worked a lot of time in dispensaries helping patients and doing stuff like that for quite a few years. And a lot of the feedback we had kind of matched our personal feelings about edibles. I have experienced lots of patients coming in and, you always hear that story of, oh, my buddy's homegrown up in Washington was the best stuff I've ever had and ever smoked. And he put it in brownies and it was just the best experience of my life. We wanted to be able to almost kind of replicate that because people miss that. It was kind of nostalgic for them. There are so many new ways and different ways to do things, and it's also new and exciting. We wanted to make sure that we could kind of preserve a little bit of that piece of the past, if you will. Just sticking with, a very simple way to, infuse, just using the flower and the Keef that we grow ourselves. We don't outsource anything to put into those brands. And we just wanted to share that with Arizona pretty much. We love just, old school homemade edibles, and we wanted to make them.
Oh, I love it. It's definitely a direction to take. I mean, there's less safety concerns with other types of extraction, of dealing with, of course, the hydrocarbons and those things that create a different product. It's a different effect, and it completely makes sense. I know the energy of the plant when it's staying in that plant matter it's different. I mean, it's a flower experience, and anything directly from the flower is just, it's different. So I appreciate you sharing. I love hearing about all that.
Just
Thanks
really
for
before you go to the next subject, gaps in the market. Allison said that gaps in the market are so important. I would encourage people to, travel California, Oregon, Washington, Jamaica, Canada, Mexico, Colombia. There's people culturally that are using cannabis in ways that are MIPS that haven't yet been brought here. And there's going to be this whole group of license holders that are going to be coming forth, and they want to figure out a competitive edge, gaps in the market, and figure out what those are. BDSA analytics, headset, yeah. Frontier. There's a lot of data mining going on out there in the industry, and there will be, I'll challenge them so that we can get free access to all data from all these companies for all social equity licensed applicants for a year or two. I'll get that. You watch, and we'll get them all to we'll get that information out there to you and for you. So you can learn from that. But I would encourage you to learn internationally and bring those great ideas back home, because those are gaps in the market that might end up being very successful. Sorry,
Yep.
be quiet now.
You're good. You're good. So, Dr. George, your company produces a lot of the raw materials as part of that supply chain, as part of what Dell was talking about of different aspects and making the decision of whether to do things on your own versus finding solid vendors. So, do you want to talk a little bit just about kind of your development and your positioning of how you fit into the picture there?
Well, certainly when I would create a infused product, I'll look first at the customer base, because, well, there is certain customer base for DAP products, certain customer base for vaping products, for ingestible, and so on. So for sure, for, let's say, DAP products, hydrocarbon technology going to be probably the best to pull the right wax and create shatter, crumble, and so on. If I create a vape product, I'll look at different technology, because each extraction will pull different parts of the plant. And this is very important when you formulate your product, because experience of your clientele is the most important. So we have to, well, you can make pretty much distillate with all the technologies out there, but what really your customer wants: high terps with light consistency for vaping without any cutting agent, or with cutting agent. Do we need again your distillate without any flavor or with flavor? So that's very important. That's how I would pick the technology to work with. And mostly we've been involved in the vape industry since we're isolating the terps and bringing the live resin for the vape industry in the most pure way, and helping the process.
The thing that I heard the most there, I did it as well too, was that you take a tailored approach with each of your customers. Ultimately, what do they want that final product to look like? So I think the biggest takeaway from this is that there's multiple methods, there's multiple end products and results. You can produce everything in-house. You can outsource with solid vendors of people that have consistent track record, as well as the expertise to get that portion of the product development better and higher quality and cheaper than you could do it yourself. Because ultimately you got to think about the economics there and what makes sense. So appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your input there. Get back to here.
Dr. George, you're available for consulting on, is that something that you do, or are you wrapped up in Pure 5 where you cannot consult?
Yes, I'm available. I'm right in Phoenix, so easy to get.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to know that, let people know that you're available.
Absolutely.
I mean, like Allison has, like, and Dell has, they have trade secrets that they cannot share because, you know, that's why they're such great products. But I just wanted to see if you were available. Thank you. All
my secrets are shared. You go to patents at Google and type my name, so you're going to see a lot of things that you can learn from.
I will. I made a mistake getting into this networking regulatory policy stuff. You know, extraction is where it's at. Sorry.
Never too late, Dimitri. That's never too late to pivot and start something new. There's always a day there.
Well, you know, I hear Matt joined HanaMeds in 2019. No, Allison could have recruited me, but no, you know. One day I'll be trimming for Steve White, apparently.
Huh.
Love it. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. So one piece just to kind of keep in mind when you are going in and planning, ultimately, is you need to be thinking about projections, output, and that's going to factor into your budget. So that is getting the right individuals, such as the panelists that have the experience to know what can you expect from an output perspective. What is this really going to cost me at each stage of the development, and be able to verify it against real market data, because we're all operating in the space and have that. So just keep that in mind. It's ultimately it's part of any good plan is, how much am I going to produce and what is it going to cost me? Okay, so I wanted to go and shift into the next stage, which is one of the most important things of any organization in building your team: staffing, administration. who do you want to work with, and how are you going to run your business? Let's see, who do I want to call on here? Dell, with your roles and responsibilities, you kind of coming in, you've seen a lot of transition. What have you seen in kind of your staffing plan? How has it evolved as you've had to transition from different locations and different operations?
So much easier than what does MIPS mean to me, Allison? I get the easy question.
Lucky you.
Right? So I think the first advice I would give is be picky with who you bring onto your team, right? Because we're in a fortunate position where before the COVID kicked off, right, we already had an incredible amount of talent that wanted to get into this industry, and there's more and more people that see as markets legitimize and regulations change, right? You're seeing you're seeing higher caliber talent enter the market. You know, I've seen here in Arizona a lot of the people, I think early on in my days at the dispensary, and this isn't too long ago, this is 4 years ago, you saw people who were promoted to elevated positions because they were the last man standing or had been there the longest, not because necessarily they had the experience or the skill set to execute on what was needed. And you're seeing more and more of that. We're getting further, I guess, away from that. I think, overarching advice for sourcing talent, figure out what the culture is that you're looking to create. Here at Bake Bros, we want a culture that there's a little, a paragraph that our CEO wrote, and there's one line in it that says, we care deeply about our mission, our work, and our people. And if we believe that, and we want to build a culture around that, okay, then what does that look like? Well, we want people who are interested in taking care of their bodies, mind, body, and spirit, right? And so are we attracting people that may have some experience or inclination to look into mindfulness practices or different community events? Like I'm giving you some examples that we used. Every Thursday we have a group stretching event, for instance. We get the entire operations team together. We take about a half an hour and just loosen up our bodies type of thing. We have a Mindful Fridays practice where we do a group meditation with the entire company for a half an hour, right? So we've been able to pull these events together because we've collected the right people on the team that are aligned, that are like-minded, and that align with the values of our business. I think the other two things that you want to look for in addition when you're staffing to a cultural fit is someone who is nimble in terms of learning, right? So the things that are today were not yesterday in this industry, and the things that are today won't be tomorrow, right? So we are on shifting sand always, and you need people who can assimilate into and apply that knowledge rapidly. Okay, so people who are not resistant to change. You're actually looking for change agents. I think when you find people that are a cultural fit for what you're looking, the tribe that you're looking to pull together, when that's a fit, and you have people that are hungry for growing themselves and open to the new, you can teach the other pieces that are in there, right? So that's the recipe that we've used with staffing. We've been able to grow a lot of people from within. One of the benefits that we've had is time on our side. Starting this thing in 2014, a lot of the people in senior positions at our company now started off part-time packaging. And now they're running departments, right? Now these people came into the industry with a lot of experience and with a passion, willing to get their foot in the door and then accept more and more responsibilities to impact the business and bring that value. But that's high level the approach that we've taken to staffing.
Culture. That's what I heard, culture and the fit with the team. So here, we'll give you that easy question, Allison. You want to, with your experience of going through, how do you guys develop your staffing plan, and how does that fit into your culture? Like what are the things that you look for?
I mean, I definitely agree with everything that Dell said. If you ever have a question about staffing, call that guy. But when it comes to our team at HannahMeds, it's all about, passion. It's all about effort, and it's all about just, are you willing to adapt to change and take on the challenge and execute? We're looking for people who are driven. We, welcome, team members from, you don't have to be involved in cannabis for a long time to get into cannabis. You just have to be willing to do it and willing to do the work. So I think that's something that, all these cannabis companies are looking for, are just, this is new. We're all learning as we go along. So we're looking for people who are willing to learn with us as we go through this experience.
Peggy, do you guys do group stretching? Are you does OGs do group stretching on Thursdays?
Absolutely.
There you go. We're not the only ones.
I love it.
Yeah.
Probably should get back to MIPS,
We
Caleb.
even offer group therapy.
Well, it's one thing that's kind of tied into that is also with administration is inventory distribution. Ultimately, you've got product, you've got a space. How do you get it to your customers? How do you interface with your customers of building those relationships? And what goes into developing your plan? Let's see, who am I going to pick on? Matt.
Volunteer.
So I think part of the one of the first things you need, like Allison said, you need people who are passionate about the products and the brands that you're selling. And, we have Allison, for example, who's super passionate about it and did a lot of work to get Dutchie into the dispensaries that sell it today. And that's a critical part is people who are passionate about the brand, people who are, can sell the brand and can deliver great customer service to your wholesale customers. And then obviously the second part, I think, of your question, that just the physical part is putting the infrastructure and the plan together to be able to get the product from where you make it to where it needs to go. I mean, we have we have a couple different cultivation sites, so we're transferring product in between our cultivations to where we process it and production space, and then finally to where it goes to our 2 dispensaries and then to our wholesale customers. So it can get pretty complex quick, but I think maybe Dell was saying that how important it is to have SOPs and processes in place, and we definitely had to spend quite a bit of time to get the right processes in place to get the product where it needs to go. So it seems a lot easier than it is, but definitely takes a lot of work and a lot of people working together to produce it and to get it where it needs to go.
What are some of the systems that you guys use for tracking, as far as for inventory control? Just some ideas thrown out there.
That's funny you should ask, because we're going live with a new system today, I think, as we speak. So we have been on what's that?
I said, I'm sorry, you're going live with the new system?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's always a huge undertaking, right?
Yeah.
So
what could possibly go wrong?
Right.
So we had been on BioTrack for years at Hannah, and then we're going live with a system called Flourish today, which will be our seed to sale system. So we'll see how it goes. We're pretty excited about it. We think it'll be a good change, but we'll let you know.
So it always can be quite a challenge. Yeah, Dell, it sounds like you've been through a couple of those. If you can relate to that, I've helped out with a few of those, and I'm glad that you kind of brought that up about a change. And one of the things to really think about at this stage is there are so many options out there with software providers that have different features that may or may not fit. I mean, you don't need a full suite of all of the different aspects of the vertical if you're just manufacturing. Versus if and it's going to impact your cost, and there's going to be things that it's going to be a lot of training and a lot of things that you really have to consider of what's going to make the most sense for my operation.
Some other things to consider when you're talking about inventory management, you've got with this particular vertical, more so than maybe you might find in some others, we're talking about products that have an expiration date, right? So there's a shelf life on these products, right? And then some other things, just full transparency for people listening in to this who haven't, been tracking with Arizona. There's these lab requirements, also the testing requirements. We've seen, they're much better today, but late last year, we saw a huge bottleneck in the supply chain being able to push that product through. And so imagine being in a place where we've been testing, we were a small batch producer since we started. And we've been testing every batch since 2014. So we become very accustomed to these quick turn times with tests, where, 2 or 3 days. And that was baked in, pun intended there, to our production cycle, right? Well,
Good one.
in November of last year, that quadrupled overnight, right? And so now all of a sudden, we've got a team that and a production forecast and model that is still churning, right, and spitting this final product out. And now you're sitting on it for a month before it's available to sell, right? And so some things that I would be thinking about if I'm thinking about coming in here. Okay, well, what does that look like from a cash flow standpoint in terms of me being well funded enough to be able to absorb that labor cost and carry that, right? And then the other one that is easy to overlook is the physical space. And this goes back to what Peggy was saying earlier, right? Is that you think hey, I can make everything happen in this space right here, and I'm not overextending myself. And very quickly, when you see a surge in the market like we have right here, that changes. So those are the two things with inventory that are kind of hidden. I would say, cash flow to make sure you can carry inventory when things don't go the way you're thinking they're going to go, because that's going to happen. And also just the physical space of what you're going to do with it.
There's also the whole process, because when I started, I was doing everything. I was doing deliveries. Other than making the product, I was doing deliveries, I was doing inventory, I was doing everything. So it's probably a little more difficult to do that at this point with the cost. But there is a whole process to go through that doesn't have to be really onerous to begin with either.
Yep. Dimitri, did you have something that you were going to add?
No, I was going to change the subject and head in a different direction, but you can keep on going down your PowerPoint.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and dive back in. So we were
I have a lot of squirrels.
Oh yeah, squirrel up. I watched Over the Hedge recently. I'm sure you like that movie. So we started kind of talking a bit about this. An ultimate importance in a successful business is ensuring your cash management and your inventory management, and that you have the appropriate internal controls in place. So what does that mean? I'll pose that to the panel. What does internal controls mean to you when it in your day-to-day? Bueller.
I think some of the internal controls that I think that we've seen we've had to put in place. Well, let me restrictions in the banking industry have dramatically changed over the last couple of years, right? And they continue to get better. The last two organizations I've been a part of have longstanding banking relationships that have allowed us to operate, without impediment. And I think back to the early days of Bake Bros, and we had a very inefficient collection, system for gathering accounts receivable, right? And so we were overexposed with that system, and just one of the things, very simply, that can help with that is setting up as many electronic transfers as you can to limit the amount of cash that you're bringing in, and then some real basic security measures to make sure that when you are transporting that you're being smart about it. Thankfully, we have a former special operator on our team that comes out of that community, and so he loves that project of making sure that everything is protected and secure and stuff like this. But cash management, I think getting as many electronic, payments as you can set up, and more of this community in Arizona are getting themselves to a place where that's a possibility.
Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
No, I was just going to say is I want to open up the question to the others on the panel. Other things related to internal control. What about based on the types of products that you make? So let's say that you are making the syrups, or you're making cookies, or let's use a couple of different examples of how would that change how you have to design your internal controls.
George, you want to take that one?
Well, the best rule is make it after you sell it. So that's gonna straight your process the best, but eventually that's not the rule always to do. I don't have much experience in this since we're not involved in the end product development, but in this case, I would plan it better.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. We can talk a bit about compliance and what that means to everybody. Let me go ahead and
before you get to compliance, Caleb, this question, because I'm learning about MIPS myself.
Yeah.
And I haven't worked in a cultivation since 2014. And what I saw, and I wasn't really working there, I was just watching, but I was watching, all the different, strains being mixed, the trim being mixed up, and different products being created. And there didn't seem to be much concern about, where the flower, the trim came from, and then, creating a product and then labeling it in different ways. It's kind of a, not so exact science. And Dutchie, I know you guys have a couple of your own cultivations. I think people out there, new to the cannabis industry don't really understand how MIPS, evolve. Are the companies, how do you source your flower? How do you source your trim? How do you guarantee that it's what you want? And then how do you evolve that into a product, and make sure that whole chain, how do you know that you're giving the quality? How can you assure that you're giving the quality that you want and the product that you want to the customer? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, I think it's a question for the newbie.
Right. I think it's different for each situation because, our brands, we operate under a full vertical license. So we have a lot available to us that not necessarily other brands might have. Other people might have a licensing agreement to where, they're allotted a certain amount of product to work with or something like that. There's a ton of different ways to go about it. So you need to understand the situation that you are in. So, if you are working under a full vertical license and you have cultivations to source from and stuff like that, you really just need to do your homework, know what a quality product means. Like, what does that mean to you personally? What does that mean to the community? Because, people have different standards, companies have different standards of quality, and you really just need to make a decision of, okay, what's the product I want to make? How well do I want to make it? And really just be versed in that specific product. If you're outsourcing from, say you're buying your start material, like a trim or a flower from a cultivator, and you're then taking that into your building and turning it into an infused product, you need to know what you're buying. Make sure that you have all of the information. If you're creating a flower product, you're going to need to know, how was that grown? What are the test results? Is there anything in here? Is it clean? Is it safe? There's a huge laundry list. So definitely do your homework, do your research, but it's not just, grab whatever you can find and turn it into something. There needs to be plan and some thought behind it. That's at least my personal opinion. If you want to create something of quality, you have to have a goal in mind. So no matter where you're sourcing from, even if it's from under your own roof, you still need to take all those steps to make sure that the quality of the product that you're starting with is kind of on par with the quality that you want to end with. So I think that's just really important. Just be really mindful of what you're using to make your end goal.
And do you find that, and sorry, Caleb, I just want to, and do you find with experimenting with, I mean, maybe sometimes you guys do have to outsource product and bring it in to create your product. Do you find that that greatly changes or impacts the quality of the end product that you're creating? I mean, is that a reality?
It might, for our brands right now, that hasn't been a reality for us because we do have, we've been able to stay consistent with our own products and make everything in-house. So we haven't had to go out and buy something. If we were to have to go out and source flower for our Dutchie brand on the market, it might be a little bit different just because different growers are different and different cultivations are different. The quality is definitely out there. Is it doable? I'm sure, but you know, we've been fortunate enough to be able to grow our own and grow enough to supply. But the product isn't as uniform as some might hope it is, like I said, people grow in many different methods in many different ways, and you see differences in products as a result of that. In no way is that negative, it's positive because there's just, there's so much to learn.
And what MIPS do you guys have out there, Dutchie have out there in the marketplace right now? What kind of MIPS?
Pre-rolls, we have pre-roll packs. We have Dutchie concentrates that we just launched. We just started that. So we're working on building that. And then the Revival infused edibles.
Revival infused. And does anybody else want to comment on that, particular, the supply chain issue in regards to what she was talking about? Because I think this is a lot of things, people are going to find this immediately when they get their license, they want to start a MIP, they want to start a brand because that's what they really want to do. Although you can start a brand right now another way if you want, just call Caleb or call me. But they're going to find that this is as an issue as to where they get their product from before their cultivations are up. Does anybody else want to comment on that? Because Peggy, you're sourcing material everywhere.
Right. Well, primarily one place.
Where's that? I'm just kidding.
Where's that? Confidential information.
I think if
we
you're
have our own extraction too, but we're not using it as much.
Matt, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, we kind of, we're talking about a few things that, kind of got to think about together a little bit. Since we cultivate, we need to think about, we talked about like your cash position and your inventory position, right? And you always have to be mindful of the cash you have on hand, right? I mean, that's cliche, cash is king, right? But like, if you cultivate, you need to figure out what you can do, how you can use really every piece of that plant and turn it into a product, right? So, previously we in Dutchie, we use the flower only. We don't put trim in Dutchie. So we had all this trim and then we would sell it. And we're like, okay, well, we need to think of a better use for this trim, right? Than just selling it to people. And then so we had to figure that out. And obviously there's a lot of controls you need to put into place to track that inventory, right? As it moves through your cultivation, as it moves through your manufacturing process. You need to be able to manage it both in the system that you're using and physically. You need to be able to know where that product is going. And then the other thing I was thinking of as we were talking was, we've talked a lot about the products that you want to make, right? What kind of MIP do you want to make? What part of the market do you want to be in? But I think really, if someone getting into the market needs, the first thing you need to think about, not even someone new, but us, as we're trying to think of new products, is what does the consumer want? Because what the product we might want to make, maybe no one wants to buy. And ultimately you need to figure out what does the consumer want, and then figure out how you meet that need. Because if you make something that nobody wants, it's really not worth anybody's time. So the first thing you need to think about is the consumer and what do they want, and not just what the consumer wants today, but what's the consumer going to want a year from now and 5 years from now. And I think it all just has to start there with
I haven't seen cannabis infused hand sanitizer. Anyone? No.
No, I think you hit it, Matt. Orange juice is one of the things I think of. Had a very short run up here in Oregon, and we only had one batch of it. and I ended up having to waste out 11 out of the 12 I bought. So that was a one-time thing. So yeah, I think you really, really hit on it. It's not just what you want to make, it's responding to market conditions, and those are always changing. So you have to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on and listen to your customers. They're going to be the best source of information when you're going and selling products. They're going to tell you, just engage in conversation, and you'll be surprised of what you can learn just in a couple of a few minutes of a conversation, dropping off product, to take that time to really know your customer.
I would just add that if you're not in a place where the vertical integration is a possibility, right? I'm just jealous of you guys. That's a great position to be in, because you can capture those margins up and down. But if you're not in that place, and Dimitri, you want to make sure that what you're getting is, the quality that you're expecting. I mean, we cannot sell into a dispensary without a full panel on the product that we're delivering. So we have set that, and I'm sure everyone else on here too has set that same guidance for our suppliers, right? Where if I'm going to pick something up, an extract from Pure 5, for instance, right? I'm going to require that there's a test on that before before that transaction's complete. And then, because to the point that was made earlier, not all of the products are, of the exact same, consistency all the way down. When you're looking at something like potency, for instance, we send that product out again to get tested once we get it. So there are ways to ensure, if you're not extracting, that you've got quality raw ingredients that are going in to maintain the consistency that you'd be looking to achieve.
Can I throw out another question? So if somebody asked you, Dell, or each of you guys can take a shot at this, I'm really interested in MIPS, and was there a book or website that you would go to or point me to learn more about MIPS in the cannabis industry? What are those resources out there that you recommend? Except for making yourselves available by email, et cetera. You don't want everybody calling you and emailing you. What resources out there? Where would you guide your son who just graduated college but wants to understand and learn and develop MIPS in the cannabis space? Where would you send them to? Who wants to take that one first? There is none.
I would say two things to that. I would say the first thing is that while MIPS in the cannabis space is a novel industry, right? Making confections is not. Right. So in my business of, having a gummy line and a syrup line, candy manufacturing is not something that's new, right? There's companies that we can pull wisdom for, and best practices and state-of-the-art manufacturing, systems from that have been around a lot longer. So if I was coming into this brand new, that would be one of the first things I would do, is I would look to see, what's out there that I can consume right now or absorb that would shorten that learning curve from the confection industry, the baked goods industry, and some of these others. The other untapped resource that you could plug into would be some of the talent that's invested over the last decade across the country and here in Arizona to gather that knowledge through trial and error, right? And so when I've been telling people for the last 4 years, people are going to create opportunities for themselves in this business that don't exist yet, right? And that is starting to happen Caleb, I think you're almost a prime example of that, of coming from a different side of the business right now, being able to shorten people's learning curve by coming alongside them and saying, hey, let me just save you 3 years of headache and just share with you what I know. Now that information is going to come at a cost, right? So it's going to be more expensive to bring on those consultants or hire that talent, and it may be the smartest money you spend.
Are you from the East Coast?
I'm not from the East Coast. Do I sound like I'm from the East Coast?
No, you use the word confection in a sentence, and that kind of freaked me out. I went to Boston University. When I got back there to go to school, I was like, all these East Coast kids use these, 10-cent words and sentences.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I read it somewhere today and thought I could use it. So it's not that I'm smart and have a great vocabulary. I just picked it up.
No, I Googled it. It says a dish or delicacy made with sweet ingredients, for anybody out there who's wondering, except for me. So thank you. But the same question to George. Your son graduates college, wants to become an expert in MIPS and learn all about them. Where do you send them to, except for dinner table discussion with you?
get him an iPad and leave him to search, because there are so many things written out there that sooner or later you'll find your answer. And I'm completely agree with Dell about that if you make candies, just go ask the candy factory how to make candies. Of course, there's how much sugar, how much flavor, you put all these things. So I was studying the golden proportions of kind of what is best for, let's say, making perfect vape product, how much sterols versus how much cannabinoids, do we need cutting edge and all these things. And what about if you put a tincture together? What about if you put like eatable product, what proportions? And pretty much following the nature, getting let's say 10 to 1, 10 to 2 ratios of one to other brings you different results. And the struggle mainly that I had was with the testers. So I have to find the testers to represent the market, the audience, and figure out, okay, this is my favorite product that's going to hit the market, and so on. But anyway, all of this, when you have it in a product list, when somebody asks you how to make it or to make more of it, your staff have to be very familiar how to make it every time consistent. That's why even you change the strain, even you change the supply chain, you have to have the golden proportions intact. So next time it tastes the same. So when you infuse the product, you infuse in the right proportion. So it's always consistent, and that needs to be in the SOP.
You bring up two very important points: consistency, and who needs friends and experts anymore when you have Google. It kind of it's a little bit inhuman, but we do appreciate the truth of that statement. I'm just kidding. I always think about that. You know, the more and more life goes on, the less and less context I need because I have Google. So, but that's a whole nother conversation. Matt, same question to you. Resource wise, where would you point people to? You know, how did you? I mean, I guess you learned firsthand, or you know.
I would go to Google too. And I don't make any of our infused products, so I'm going to leave that one up to the experts.
Peggy?
Huh?
Peggy, what resources would you guide people towards to learn and get more in depth about MIPS?
Where I've gone was Google, and then there were various books. You know, time about how to make infused products.
Used to be we'd go to the anarchist handbook, right? Allison.
I mean, Google taught me a lot. I think, especially for infused products, like look to the industry. Do you see a brand or a product that you love, and kind of go from there? Because a lot of these products, you might see something, you might get inspired. They might have a little information or a bio on their website that says, you know, here's a little bit of background on what we do. Like, do your research, see what's going on out there, and let that influence the kind of research that you do, because you might come across, you know, like all these, you know, if you go on MITA and all the articles and all of just all these experts in the field talking about what they do and how they've done it, like explore those resources. Like there might not be a dictionary on all things cannabis and how to do everything. No one's going to be able to tell you directly what to do, but pay mind to people's shared experiences, just like what we're doing today. You know, pay attention to what the people who have done and how they've done it. I know, you know, social media is huge. You know, if you go follow your favorite brands or your favorite pages, you can kind of follow their story, and you can learn a lot from that, because just how they react to things, or if they launch a new product, like it might just change your perspective a little bit. You might not be able to find all the answers, but you might find the inspiration to come up with some of those answers on your own. And I think that's always something important to keep in mind as well, because a lot of this cannabis territory is uncharted, and you might come up with a solution that hasn't been come up with yet.
Well, I promise you, because, you know, I mean, I created MITA. I'm all about the humanity and the human experience, that I will gladly have dinner with each and every one of you for an hour or two, rather than spend, even you, George, right? Even though you're the one that's championing Google here, I champion humanity. And I think there's a lot to be said about that human experience. and the knowledge that can be shared in those kind of conversations.
I
So,
agree. I want to comment. One place would be on some of the manufacturers of the equipment. They are definitely the experts on that particular method. They have customers that they may be able to get you in touch with to talk about their experience with that particular technology. What is it doing, as well as the training and how to fully utilize that equipment and why you would go one direction or another. I know next week's module, we're going to be diving in more deeply to the different types of extraction methodologies, how they differ. So that is definitely a great place. I got to give a plug to Leafly on different product types. That was one thing for any of my new bud tenders. I would always send them there. Go learn about the different types of extraction products, and they had some great 101 resources out there just to get a general overview and find out where do I want to go dive deeper. Because yes, Google will get you to the article that you want to go and find, and may help to connect you with the right organization that will have that knowledge there for you. So definitely keep that in mind.
yeah, Caleb, obviously this is such a deep and complicated subject. You know, we're trying to explain like all of baseball, but just real quick, because I wondered this myself. So say if something is extracted, there's a lot of different types of extraction methods, and Baked Rose needs it for syrup that it's creating. Do they care what kind of extraction method is used to arrive at what they use to infuse their product? I mean, is that something that that level of detail, does that matter?
It depends on what the consistency of the product that it is going in. So I'm thinking for syrups probably is going to be a distillate to where you're able to get more of that consistent versus it depends on what your end product wants to be, is going to help to determine what direction that you want to go. Like I'm a huge fan of BHO extraction. And I typically will go and purchase those versus a CO2 or some others, because that's my personal preference. So there might be just some differences between consistency, effects, tastes, what the ultimate experience is going to be. And certainly if you're making a vape cartridge, it's going to be totally different than if you're going to make a gram of shatter.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? Anyone, Dal, you want to jump in there?
I don't have anything to add on the comments that Caleb made, but I was thinking we failed as a panel in not recommending something for everybody to read. You know, other than the internet.
Read it all.
So I'm gonna share a book that I think for anyone that's getting started here that may even be looking for, you know, a history lesson when it comes to this industry and how we got to where we are, that I think does a really great job of outlining this. Steve D'Angelo's book, The Cannabis Manifesto, was given to me when 4 years ago when I joined, knew nothing about the industry. And I think it does a really good job of summarizing, everything that this plant has gone through in the history of it. So there's something that you could pick up that may give you some insight, even to some of the things that Dimitri, you were mentioning in terms of products that or modalities that have been used across, over centuries that are not yet available in markets the way that.
Yeah, that's, 15, 25 years from now, I mean, it's going to get a little crazy. Caleb, do you have wanted to head towards a summary so everybody can talk about themselves a little bit more, people can get to know them and how to get in touch with them. And I wanted to hear from Dr. Humble as to what he thinks, because he always has, he's learning firsthand here, all this stuff that he accidentally created, was asked to create regulatory structures for, and he's like, what the hell is all this stuff? I'd love to get his perspective on what you've heard here today, Dr. Humble. And Caleb, maybe one last question, and then we'll let everybody summarize. Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds good.
Dr. Humble, did you want to jump in there? Oh, you're on mute.
On mute. I just put some required reading. It's very dry reading, but it's important reading. The administrative code.
Love it.
No, but I don't know enough to really comment on this part of it. I do know that networking and participating in forums like this, and Dimitri, when you could get the group together again in person, those MITA meetings those in-person meetings were really, really good. That's an opportunity to talk to, the various industry players per one-on-one. My guess is that that's going to be possible probably by July, maybe even June, where some of these restrictions will be lifted because the vaccines are, becoming more and more plentiful. There should be a really good supply by May. But no, that's been really interesting. I learned a lot today about. I didn't even know the acronym until. I mean, I knew a little bit of the stuff you guys are talking about, but I hadn't heard of the MIPS part of it. But one of the things that strikes me big picture about this, and I talked about this last week and the week before, I think probably, is that the discussion today shows me that the decisions that we made 10 years ago as we were finalizing these rules really worked out pretty well, because what we wanted to accomplish was a program that incentivized innovation and product development. And in order to do that, we had to give a little bit on the stringent on how stringent the regulations were going to be. The statute would have allowed us to have made sure that everyone was like Allison. Everyone was in an industry that had a full on, grew everything they did, made everything they did, extracted everything that they did. The rules, the statute was written so it could have been that way. And if we had made that decision, this meeting today would have been very different, because everyone would have been in a vertical structure, and we would have a lot less innovation, far fewer products, and higher prices. So it shows me that that we made some pretty good decisions, not perfect. I mean, we made some errors in a lot of areas, transportation, testing, that kind of stuff. But big picture, in terms of, were we going to allow for wholesale transfer? Because we didn't have to do that. It shows that it worked out. I don't know if that was your question or not.
No. Just getting your perspective was the question. It's such valuable insight to have you here, and we really appreciate your support of this project. We want to make sure that we get some insights from you, and one day I believe you're going to be governor and overseeing the entire adult use industry. So, you're a great public servant, and your commitment to policy without partisanship has been shown since 2010, 11, 12, 13. So we really appreciate that, and it's helped with the development of the industry. But Caleb, allow me to close it up. Is that cool?
Yeah, I just, one thing that I want to leave everybody with is that the MIPS is slightly undefined and always changing. So innovation is the key in this industry. Just because it hasn't been done and hasn't been made into a marijuana infused product doesn't mean that you can't do it and that it's not viable and possible. Just do your market research.
Okay, so this time I'm going to do the ceremony before everybody sums up. So this is my grandfather's machete from Oaxaca, Mexico. So everybody who's a panelist and who gets to be on here gets to be dubbed social equity mentorship specialists. So Allison, Dell, George, Matt, Peggy, you are now dubbed by my grandfather's machete from the 50s in Oaxaca, Mexico. You guys are now officially mentors. But if you guys want to say goodbye, let people know if they can get a hold of you and how, except for Dr. George, who will be busy on Google. The rest of us will be together in person talking soon here. Just kidding, Dr. George. You're more than invited. Just, Peggy, you want to go ahead and say your goodbyes and whatever else you'd like to.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's been a great panel. I had one question that we didn't touch on, was labeling and packaging for the new person, because that's a whole nother complex area.
We're going to have an hour on labeling and packaging with Dispo put together in the May series. So people will get a deep dive into that.
Okay.
And if you have any other ideas that you want to do a deep dive in, we're offering those free to companies to put an hour worth of information, and we'll store it on the MITA website so people can watch it at their own leisure.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been a great panel. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Dimitri.
Well, Peggy, we appreciate you and you're a great asset. 10 years, the Arizona cannabis industry. I know how easily people, you are to talk to. And in all the 48, 56 MITA meetings, you were at every single one available, accessible. So we get well, heal up, focus on you.
I absolutely have to get back to see you all, guys. And
Okay.
Caleb, you did a good job.
Thanks, Peggy. It's good
And
to
we'll
see you.
see you. And Peggy, we'll see you in June or July. Maybe Dr. Humble can push Kara Christ into opening up in April or May, but Allison.
Well, thanks for having me today. This is so great to, chat with everybody and, listen to what everybody has going on. It's very exciting. I think the social equity opportunity in Arizona is a huge deal. So just pay attention, do your research. There are a lot of great groups in Arizona doing a lot of great work towards this program. This is a chance for, the cannabis community and grassroots efforts to stay and be involved in regulated cannabis. And I think that's very important. So thanks for shedding some light on this. Thanks for having me and listening to my soapbox, but it's very cool to be a part of all of this. So thank you.
Allison, you're fantastic. Your company is fantastic. Canameds, Dutchy, Revival. We'll go to Revival next, and then George, and then Dell. We'll close up that way. So Revival.
Yeah, look, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely learned a lot from everybody else on the panel. So appreciate all the insights that you had, and yeah, hopefully get to do it again. Appreciate it.
I could just see, in June we'll be together, or July, or people walk up to you and say, hey, I saw you on that panel. It's crazy how many people watch these videos online, and we'll be watching them all the way through the application period as the excitement builds around social equity. Dr. George.
Well, that was a privilege to be here, of course. And even you can find everything on Google. We're here live, and you can ask us every question, because every answer you're going to get from us is out of our experience, out of our mistakes, and we're going to share it with honesty.
You reminded me of that. There was a David Letterman episode like in 2000 something, and the guy was sitting with David Letterman, and Letterman said, tell us about your new book. He's like, well, this is my new book, but you really don't have to read it. You can just go Google and watch it online, read it online. And David's like, you're supposed to sell your book. He's like, well, who needs that? You can read it online. So George, you are a great asset. We appreciate having you in Arizona, and we encourage people to reach out to you and take you out to dinner instead of Googling things. Dell.
Yes, sir.
Your
All right,
turn.
well,
and by the way, Dell, this is your first Zoom. You did fantastic. You are a
Thank
wealth
you.
of information. You demonstrated your knowledge and your strengths and just so well. So congratulations to you. You're a great asset, even though you're not from an East Coast school.
Yeah, thank you. I'll end with this, I guess. So, my introduction to Bake Bros was on the dispensary side of things, and I was trying to solve a problem in my dispensary, right? How do I get more people through the door and then get them to come back a second, a third, a fourth time? And Bake Bros was the partner that I took to develop, one of the first loyalty programs that I was aware of to leverage just vendor partnerships in the way that we did. And my experience with the brand was, it wasn't what I experienced across the entire market. There was an air of professionalism and a consistency and impact and excellence of the brand and the product that I resonated with. And I don't think you know this, Dimitri, but 2 years ago, I was at one of the MITA events at the Foundry, and I was getting ready to leave. I told myself I'm going to stay here another 20 minutes or so. I ran into Nadeem.
Stop.
Happened to talk to him about, hey, look, man, I know we did some work at the dispensary, but I just want to let you know I got some time, and I'm looking at kind of the next thing right now. And this journey has resulted in something that's truly changed my life. And I'm not going to get into all that, but I know I found my tribe, and I couldn't be more grateful to be where I'm at. And I owe a debt of gratitude for you for putting that event on that facilitated, the environment and the situation to make that happen. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, we get a lot of those stories, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, and it is one of the great offerings that MITA has, is to bring all kinds of, we're 70% industry, 30% newbies, and we create this mix. It's fantastic. Caleb, any last words?
Just want to thank everybody for their time. I'm available for any questions throughout this process, anything related to your operations, any of the topics that we covered today. My email's been up behind me the whole time, so please reach out. I'm here. So I look forward to continuing on with this program next week.
Scottsdale Community College.
Hi, thanks to everyone on the panel. It's been very informative. I'm trying to recruit all of you to teach some of our curriculum, so check your emails. And also just want to let everyone know, a lot of the resources, the marketing research resources, information on books to read and all of that are available in our cannabis classes. So send me an email to 420business@scottsdalecc.edu.
You guys are going to have an amazing curriculum over the next 10 years, especially with all the industry members that you're meeting from all the panels.
We're so excited to work with all of you at MITA and all the panelists, and very grateful. So
No,
thank you.
I mean, I can see Allison standing up in front of 26, 18 to 22-year-old generally community college individuals and inspiring them to a new career. This is all, it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And once we get back in person, we can use our buildings at Scottsdale Community College for conferences and get us everybody back together in person.
Except for George. George is going to be on Google.
Except for George.
Dr. Humble, any last words before I say goodbye?
Yeah, I have a last question for you. I was checking, I'm on the state's website for the bills. What's that social equity bill, that bad bill number? Do you remember?
SB 1121 is the controversial one, but Dr. Freeze has a number of bills going through. You and I could probably speak about that online. People are messing with social equity. I think they should increase the number of social equity licenses by the 10% that's allowed by 207, but we'll see if that filters through.
What'd you say, 1129?
SB 1121.
1121. I just want to give everybody an update where it's at, because I thought it was a bad bill because it made sure everyone had to have $500,000 in equity to apply and stuff. I just want to see what the status is of it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. I was thinking about doing an entire update on that and trying to get Senator Gowan or Dr. Freeze, Representative Freeze, to talk about their manifestations and manipulations in regards to the social equity program, because if anything, they should be expanding it. But there's different people in their ear that are having different agendas and different priorities. And I think we definitely need to get in there and talk to them.
Well, it looks like it's dead because it never got out of the Senate. And it's already switchover week, so.
Good. It was a terrible bill.
Yeah, so, it looks like it's dead. Now it could come back as a striker. So, everybody keep an eye on that.
And we'll chat about that. So any other comments, any other thoughts before we close up? Thank you again, Allison, Dell, Dr. George, Dr. Humble, Dr. Barbara, Caleb, Peggy, Matt, for making yourselves available, and Destiny back there behind the scenes, for making yourself available to the Arizona community and to create this historical document, which will be seen by so many people over the next 6 or 7 months. But until the gap in the market makes cannabis infused sanitizer, we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There he goes.